The streets I played on as a child 60 years ago no longer exist. The squares where I ran around have turned to concrete. The historic fountains where we cooled off were demolished. I witnessed the death of a city. They called it modernization, they called it development, but they never talked about what we lost. Tonight I'm going to tell you about those lost buildings, that lost culture. My name is Robert Anderson. I'm 83 years old, a retired architect and restoration specialist. I was born and raised in Boston. I dedicated my life to preserving historic buildings. But unfortunately, throughout my life, I witnessed more demolitions than preservation. Since the 1960s, I've observed Boston's transformation. Was this transformation modernization or destruction? I lived with this question. Tonight I'm going to tell you about Boston's lost heritage. Because when a city forgets its past, it also loses its future. Boston in the 1950s was very different. The population was around 800,000. Now it's 4 million in the metro area. Back then, wooden houses everywhere. Narrow streets, cobblestones, fountains on every corner, neighborhood taverns, coffee houses, historic halls, bathhouses. As a child, we played in Quincy Market area. Back then, the area was completely surrounded by historic buildings. Now half of them are gone. I saw the first major demolition when I was 10 years old. A 2,000-year-old fountain in our neighborhood was being demolished. I asked my father, why are they tearing it down? They're going to widen the road, he said. I cried that day. I can never forget the water I drank from that fountain, but the road was never widened. Only the fountain was gone. The major transformation began in the 1960s. There was something called urban renewal. Under the name of modernization, wooden houses demolished, replaced with concrete apartments, narrow streets widened, historic fabric destroyed. Every year 10-20 historic buildings disappeared. But no one spoke up, because they said we're developing. I entered architecture school in 1965. I took historic preservation courses there. My professor, Dr. Harrison, deeply influenced me. Robert, he said one day, you're going to witness the death of this city, but maybe you can do something. From that moment I started taking photographs. I decided to document every historic building. I've been taking systematic photographs since more than 3,000 historic buildings, more than 40,000 photographs, some still standing, most gone. This archive is now very valuable because it's the only record of lost buildings. The situation got even worse in the 1970s. Bridges were being built, highways opening. For the central artery, historic mansions demolished, old gardens destroyed, waterfront buildings gone. They said it was necessary for transportation, but those buildings would never come back. One of my most painful memories is the West End, a centuries-old settlement. People had lived there since colonial times. Unique architecture, culture, community. It was demolished in the 1970s under urban renewal. Thousands of people were displaced. Culture was destroyed. I graduated in 1975, started working in restoration, but it was very sad. Buildings next to what I was restoring were being demolished. We saved one side, lost the other. My conflicts with the city began. When I said this building must be preserved, they said these are old, we need a new city. After the 1980s, the situation became more dire. Free market economy arrived. Now not just the city, but developers were also in play. Historic buildings were seen as real estate. The word profit entered our lives. Monetary value replaced historic value. What was demolished in the 12 historic halls, 18 historic buildings, 35 wooden mansions, 6 historic fountain complexes, countless wooden houses. Each was documented, buildings that should have been preserved. But making money was more important. We tried to save some buildings. We established civil initiatives. We founded an organization called Historic Preservation Society. We worked with lawyers, applied to courts. We saved some, but we lost most, because the system was stronger than us. A new threat in the 1990s. Mall. Giant shopping centers were being built next to historic buildings. Historic fabric was disappearing. An example, the historic Haymarket area gave way to a mall. All that culture, that atmosphere disappeared. After concerns about structural integrity, the situation got even worse. Everything started being demolished under the excuse of structural risk. There were genuinely risky buildings, but many solid historic buildings were also demolished with the risk label. As an architect, I wrote reports. This building can be reinforced. But they didn't listen. They demolished. After the 2000s, the concept of urban renewal entered our lives. In theory, it was a good thing. Restore old buildings, strengthen them. In practice, demolish everything, build new. South End, parts of Roxbury, Charlestown, all demolished under urban renewal. I want to talk specifically about fountains, because they were Boston's symbols. In 1950, there were 320 historic fountains. Now only 65 remain standing. Each fountain had a story. Who commissioned it? For what charitable purpose? The inscriptions on them. Now they're all gone. Replaced with plastic water dispensers. Boston's most distinctive feature was wooden houses. Along the harbor, on the streets. In 1960, there were more than 8,000 wooden houses. Now around. Why did they disappear? Fires, neglect, intentional demolitions, desire to be modern. Historic halls were Boston's commercial centers. Bathhouses were social life centers. Most dating from colonial period, 2003. Most demolished after the old, useless, should be replaced with offices, not suitable for tourism. The irony, now tourists come to see those buildings, but they're gone. The waterfront used to be completely different. Mansions, estates, coastal villages, now full of apartment blocks. Historic silhouette lost. Once you could see a historic building from every corner of the waterfront. Now concrete. When buildings are demolished, it's not just stone and brick. Culture goes too. Neighborhood culture, community relationships, traditional lifestyle, collective memory. This culture doesn't live in apartments. Everyone isolated. My grandchildren are 15 and 17. I show them old photographs. Grandpa, what was here, they ask. There was a historic hall, I say. But they demolished it before you were born. They're sad, because they can't know their own city. In recent years, I created a digital archive, scanned all photographs, founded a website, Lost Boston, shared thousands of photos. Young generation showed great interest. I wish we could have seen it, they say, but now it's too late. Good news. Now there's more preservation consciousness. UNESCO listings, civil society pressure, social media campaigns, but still too late. Every day a building is at risk. The biggest threat, economic pressure. Preserving historic buildings is expensive. Demolishing is cheaper than restoring. Property owners say, I can't make ends meet, I'll sell. Developer buys, demolishes. There are preservation laws, but insufficient. Penalties too low. Weak enforcement. Political pressure exists. Profit lobby is strong. Sometimes even listed buildings get demolished. Then they pay a fine. Problem solved after the fact. How is it done in other countries? Europe. Historic centers completely preserved. Japan, traditional neighborhoods restored. Italy, every historic building considered sacred. Why can't we do it? Now some demolished buildings are being reconstructed, but not original. Very expensive. No soul. Too late. Demolishing takes 1 day, rebuilding takes 10 years. I tell young people, own your city. Preserve historic buildings. Don't stay silent. Because once demolished, there's no return. I'm 83 years old. Throughout my life, I witnessed a city's death. Boston is still beautiful, but not as much as before. It lost its soul. This isn't just Boston's problem. The same thing happens in every American city. Last year, the last historic building in my neighborhood was also demolished. A 150-year-old mansion. I grew up in that mansion, took my first art lesson there. I went and watched when it was demolished. I cried. Now nothing historic remains in the neighborhood, only concrete apartments. That's why I created this archive. 40,000 photos, 60 years of effort. I'll donate it to the university. Entrust it to future generations. Maybe they'll preserve better. I still haven't lost hope, because the younger generation is more conscious. I see campaigns on social media. People react. Maybe the future will be different. A city isn't just its buildings, it's its people, its culture. But buildings carry that culture. When buildings disappear, culture disappears too. So preserve your city, claim your history, because what we lose never comes back.